There's something you do every single day, something so automatic, so completely woven into your routine that you've never once stopped to question it. And I want you to think about this carefully because what I'm about to share with you has changed how cardiologists think about heart health in people over 65. It's not about medication. It's not about a new diet. It's about the way you walk. Specifically, the way most people over 65 walk and why that pattern, the one that feels completely normal and even comfortable, may actually be quietly working against your heart. I know that sounds surprising. Walking is supposed to be good for you, and it is, but only when it's done in a way that your cardiovascular system can actually benefit from. There is a specific common habit embedded in the way most older adults walk that reduces the heart's efficiency, limits blood flow, and gradually increases the physiological burden on your arteries, and most people have no idea it's happening. My name is Dr. William Lee. I'm a physician, scientist, and the author of Eat to Beat Disease. I've spent decades studying the biology of how the human body heals itself and, more specifically, how the cardiovascular system either thrives or deteriorates based on the inputs we give it every single day. The research coming out of cardiovascular medicine right now is genuinely exciting, but it's also humbling because it shows us how much we've been overlooking, things hiding in plain sight. If you're new here, this channel Biosecrets is where we translate cutting-edge science into real, usable knowledge for your everyday life. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd encourage you to do that now. We publish content here that you genuinely won't find explained this way anywhere else. Now let me take you inside the science of what's actually happening, because once you understand the biology here, the rest of this is going to make complete sense. Most people have been told their whole lives that walking is one of the best things they can do for their heart, and that's true. Walking is extraordinary medicine. But here's the part that almost never gets mentioned. The quality and pattern of how you walk determines whether your heart is actually getting stronger or just being maintained at a plateau. And for people over 65, there's one specific walking habit that has become almost universal, one that cardiologists and exercise physiologists are now looking at very carefully. That habit is constant pace, shuffle pattern walking. Let me explain what I mean, because this isn't about speed. This is about how the heart responds to movement. After about age 60, many people naturally begin to shorten their stride. The step length decreases. The foot begins to barely leave the ground. The gait becomes more of a controlled shuffle than a true stride. This happens because of changes in balance, confidence, muscle strength in the legs and hips, and neurological feedback. And people do it instinctively because it feels safer, it feels more controlled. But here's what most people don't realize. That shuffling, short stride pattern keeps your heart operating within a very narrow cardiovascular range, and that narrow range, sustained over months and years, is actually one of the reasons heart function can decline even in people who believe they're staying active. The heart is a muscle, and like every other muscle in your body, it needs to be challenged intelligently and safely in order to maintain its strength and efficiency. When you walk in a way that never asks more of your heart than the bare minimum, you're essentially telling that muscle to maintain the status quo. And in biology, maintaining the status quo in a system that's aging is not neutral. It's a slow regression. Let me take you into the cardiovascular system for a moment, because understanding what's happening inside your body will make this real for you. Your heart pumps blood through a network of vessels that, if stretched end to end, would circle the earth more than twice. At the center of all of this is a concept cardiologists call cardiac output, the amount of blood your heart pumps per minute. When you're sitting still, your heart might pump about 5 liters of blood per minute. During vigorous exercise in a healthy person, that number can jump to 20 liters or more. That's a 4-fold increase in efficiency. Now, when you walk, your cardiac output increases. Your muscles are asking for more oxygen, more nutrients, and your heart responds by beating faster and pushing more blood with each beat. This increased demand is actually a form of training. Over time, a heart that regularly experiences healthy increases in demand becomes more efficient. Its stroke volume, the amount of blood pushed out with each beat, improves. The left ventricle, which is the main pumping chamber, maintains its elasticity and strength. The arteries, stimulated by increased blood flow, release a compound called nitric oxide, which keeps blood vessel walls flexible and healthy. But when walking is done at such a low intensity, such a narrow and comfortable range, none of this happens to its full potential. The heart isn't being asked, the arteries aren't being stimulated, and the nitric oxide pathway, which is one of the most important protective mechanisms your cardiovascular system has, stays relatively quiet. This is the hidden problem with the shuffle pattern. It's not that you're being inactive, it's that you're being just active enough to feel like you're doing something, while your cardiovascular system receives far less benefit than you believe you're getting. Now, before I go further, I want to address something important. I'm not saying that shuffling is dangerous. For people with specific balance issues or certain conditions, a shorter stride may be medically appropriate and necessary. What I'm talking about today is the habitual, unconscious adoption of this pattern by people who are physically capable of walking differently and who would benefit enormously from making a specific shift. And that shift is more achievable than you might think. Here's what the science is showing us. Research in cardiovascular physiology has consistently demonstrated that interval variation during walking, meaning periods of slightly increased effort alternating with normal comfortable pacing, produces significantly greater cardiovascular benefits than steady-state walking at the same comfortable pace. This isn't just about calories or fitness. This is specifically about how the heart, muscle, and blood vessels respond. When you incorporate natural variation into your walking, longer strides, slightly brisker intervals, even gentle inclines, you create what cardiologists call a cardiac training stimulus. Your heart rate rises, your arteries experience increased shear stress from greater blood flow. That shear stress triggers the release of nitric oxide from the inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium, and nitric oxide is genuinely one of the most powerful cardiovascular protective molecules your body makes. The endothelium, that single-cell thick lining of your blood vessels, is not passive tissue. It's metabolically active. It responds to signals, and one of its most powerful signals is blood flow. When blood flows more vigorously through your vessels, the endothelial cells sense it, and they respond by releasing nitric oxide, which causes the vessel walls to relax, reduces arterial stiffness, lowers blood pressure, and protects against the kind of plaque formation that leads to heart attacks. A walking pattern that keeps you permanently in a low-demand zone never fully activates this system, but a walking pattern that naturally challenges your heart even modestly keeps that system engaged and protective. Let me give you a way to picture this, because I think it helps to visualize what's happening inside your body. Think of your cardiovascular system like a river and its banks. When a river flows gently and never fluctuates, the banks become overgrown, rigid, and narrow over time. Sediment builds up, the channel tightens, but when a river experiences natural variation in flow, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, the banks stay shaped and clear. The current keeps the channel open and the whole system stays dynamic and healthy. Your blood vessels work in a very similar way. Regular, gentle variation in blood flow keeps the inner walls of your arteries clean, elastic, and responsive. Permanent low flow, constant pace movement doesn't provide that variation, and over years and decades, that lack of variation contributes to arterial stiffness, reduced endothelial function, and an increased risk of cardiovascular events. This is what the science on arterial aging is showing us. Arterial stiffness is now recognized as one of the most important independent predictors of cardiovascular risk in older adults, and it is not purely an inevitable consequence of aging. It is significantly influenced by how well and how often the endothelium is stimulated through physical activity. The shuffle walk doesn't stimulate it enough. Now, let me be very specific about what correcting this habit actually looks like, because I want you to walk away from this with a clear picture in your mind. The first thing to address is stride length. When you're walking, one of the most heart protective adjustments you can make is to consciously lengthen your step. Not dramatically, not to the point where you feel unstable, but enough so that you're taking a genuine stride, heel contact, midfoot roll, toe off, that full range of motion. In the leg activates the large muscle groups, the glutes, the hamstrings, the quadriceps, and large muscle activation is what drives cardiac output up. Large muscles demand oxygen, and when your muscles demand oxygen, your heart responds. Short shuffle steps primarily use the shins and calves. They're small movements that don't challenge the cardiovascular system adequately. Full strides engage your entire lower body and send a much stronger signal to your heart to increase its output. The second thing to focus on is pace variation. This doesn't mean running intervals. It means that within a normal walking session, let's say you walk for 20 or 30 minutes, you naturally vary your pace. Walk comfortably for 3 or 4 minutes, then increase your pace slightly for 1 to 2 minutes to a speed where talking requires a little more effort, then return to comfortable. That small natural fluctuation is enough to engage the cardiovascular training response in a meaningful way. This approach is supported by research on what exercise physiologists call cardiac reserve, the difference between your heart's resting output and its maximum capacity. In healthy aging, preserving cardiac reserve is one of the most important goals, and interval variation in walking has been shown to better preserve cardiac reserve than steady-state walking at a comfortable pace. The third element is arm swing. This one surprises most people. When people adopt the shuffle pattern, they often also reduce or restrict their arm movement. Arms stay closer to the body, elbows barely bend, and shoulders become tight and still. But natural, free arm swing is actually important for cardiovascular engagement during Walking, it creates rotational momentum through the torso, increases total muscle activation, and contributes to a higher metabolic demand, which means more cardiovascular benefit. Next time you walk, let your arms swing naturally, bend your elbows slightly, let your opposite arm move forward when your foot steps forward. You'll feel the difference immediately. Your pace will naturally increase, your breathing will deepen slightly, and your heart will be doing more productive work. Now there's another component to this conversation that I think is critically important, and it connects the physical habit of walking with something happening at a deeper biological level inside the cells of your heart muscle itself. After age 65, the heart undergoes gradual changes. The myocardium, the heart muscle tissue, begins to lose some of its regenerative capacity. Mitochondria, the energy-producing organelles inside heart muscle cells, become less efficient. The heart muscle can become slightly stiffer and less elastic. This is part of natural biological aging, and it's something researchers are studying intensely. But here's what's remarkable. Physical activity, specifically the kind that creates moderate cardiovascular challenge, triggers biological processes that actively counter these changes. One of the most studied is the activation of a protein called PGC1 alpha, which is often called the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis. In simple terms, PGC1 alpha is a signal that tells your cells to make more mitochondria, to improve the efficiency of the ones you have, and to enhance the cell's overall ability to produce energy. Walking at a sufficiently challenging pace activates PGC1 alpha. The shuffle pattern, at its characteristic low intensity, produces much weaker activation of this pathway. What this means practically is that the quality of your walking directly influences how well the cells of your heart muscle are maintained at a molecular level. This isn't abstract. This is your heart's biology responding in real time to how you choose to move. There's something else I want to bring up, and this relates to a specific risk that increases significantly after 65 that most people are not aware of. That risk is called diastolic dysfunction, and it is extraordinarily common in older adults, particularly those who have not maintained regular cardiovascular challenge through their activity. Diastolic dysfunction means that the heart muscle has trouble relaxing between beats. The ventricles become less compliant. They don't fill with blood as efficiently, and the result is a form of heart failure, sometimes called heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, where the heart is contracting normally but can't fill properly. It causes fatigue, shortness of breath, and reduced exercise tolerance, and it's been called an epidemic among older adults. One of the most powerful non-pharmaceutical interventions for preventing diastolic dysfunction is regular, appropriately challenging aerobic activity. Research has shown that even moderate increases in walking intensity, not extreme exercise, just walking done with intention and variation, can improve left ventricular compliance, reduce arterial stiffness, and lower the risk of developing this condition. This is why the shift away from the shuffle pattern matters so deeply. It's not just about feeling fitter, it's about the structural and functional health of your heart over years and decades. I also want to talk about posture, because this is something that connects directly to how well your cardiovascular system functions during walking and is almost completely overlooked in these conversations. When people develop the shuffle walking habit, they very commonly also develop a forward-leaning posture. The head comes slightly forward of the shoulders, the upper back rounds, the chest begins to close in, and what this does beyond the well-known effects on back and neck health is it actually compresses the thoracic cavity. It reduces the mechanical space available for the heart and lungs to expand freely. Your heart's ability to fill properly depends partly on the mechanical dynamics of the chest. When the thorax is open, when the posture is upright and the shoulders are back, the heart can fill more completely with each beat. Breathing is deeper and more efficient. Oxygen delivery to the blood improves, and the overall workload on the heart decreases because each pump is more effective. So when you walk, posture matters. Stand tall. Imagine a thread gently pulling the top of your head toward the sky. Let your shoulders relax down and back, not forced, just natural and open. This single postural correction, combined with longer strides and natural arm swing, will change the entire cardiovascular dynamic of your walk. Let me pause here and come back to the practical picture, because I want to make sure this is completely clear and usable for you. The habit to stop is short shuffled steps, restricted arm swing, forward-leaning posture, and a perfectly constant slow pace that never asks your heart to do more than the absolute minimum. The habit to replace it with is this: walk tall, take full strides, let your arms swing naturally, vary your pace within your walk, a few minutes comfortable, a minute or two slightly brisker, back to comfortable, walk on gentle terrain variation when possible, even mild slopes, and do this for at least 20 to 30 minutes most days of the week. This is not complicated. It doesn't require a gym. It doesn't require special equipment. It requires awareness and intention to things that cost nothing and deliver enormous return. And the research supports this return clearly. Studies looking at gait quality and cardiovascular outcomes in adults over 65 consistently show that gait speed, stride length, and walking variability are all independently associated with cardiovascular health markers, including arterial stiffness, blood pressure, and even cardiac muscle function. Gait quality is now being recognized as a vital sign in cardiovascular medicine, a window into how well the heart and vascular system are functioning. I want to bring up one more thing before we close because this piece often gets left out of the conversation, and I think it's one of the most important elements. That is the role of consistent walking on something called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability, or HRV, refers to the natural variation in time between each heartbeat. It sounds counterintuitive, but a healthy heart does not beat like a perfectly regular metronome. It should have slight natural variation in its rhythm. This variation is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, specifically the balance between the sympathetic system, which speeds the heart up, and the parasympathetic system, which slows it down and promotes recovery. Higher heart rate variability is consistently associated with better cardiovascular health, better stress resilience, and lower risk of cardiovascular events. Lower HRV is a recognized marker of cardiovascular risk, particularly in older adults. Regular aerobic walking, the kind that genuinely challenges the heart, not the shuffle pattern, has been shown to improve HRV over time. It strengthens the parasympathetic influence on the heart. It improves the communication between the nervous system and the cardiovascular system. It's one of the clearest biological signals we have that the body's repair and regulation systems are working well. When people switch from habitual shuffle walking to intentional stride-based varied pace walking, many report that within just a few weeks they feel a genuine difference. They sleep better, their resting heart rate gradually decreases, their energy improves. These are reflections of real biological changes happening at the level of the autonomic nervous system and the cardiovascular system. The body's capacity to improve does not stop at 65 or 70 or 75. This is one of the most important things I want you to take from this. Cardiovascular research has clearly established that the heart and blood vessels retain significant plasticity well into older age. The endothelium can improve its function. Arterial stiffness can decrease. Cardiac efficiency can increase. HRV can improve. Diastolic function can be preserved or even restored. But these things respond to input. They respond to the quality of the signals you send your body through how you move, how you eat, how you sleep, and how you manage stress. Walking is one of the most powerful signals you can give your cardiovascular system if you do it in a way that actually activates the biology. The shuffle pattern is not that signal. It's a whisper when your heart needs to hear a conversation. The corrected pattern, full strides, natural arm movement, upright posture, thoughtful pace variation, is a clear, productive signal. It tells your cardiovascular system that it is still needed, still challenged, still worth maintaining and improving. And your body listens. That's what the science keeps confirming. Your biology is responsive in ways that medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate. I want to leave you with something to think about, and I'd genuinely love to hear your response in the comments. Have you noticed your walking pattern changing as you've gotten older? Do you feel like your stride has shortened or your pace has become more cautious and uniform? What does your daily walk look like right now? These questions matter because awareness is always the first step. You can't change a habit you haven't noticed, and now you've noticed. Share this with someone in your life, a parent, a partner, a friend over 65 who walks every day believing they're doing everything right for their heart. This information could genuinely make a difference for them, not because what they're doing is wrong, but because a small science-backed adjustment could make what they're doing dramatically more effective. If you haven't subscribed to BioSecrets yet, please do that now. We are here every week breaking down the science of how your body actually works, the real mechanisms, the overlooked details, the things that matter but often don't get explained clearly. This is a community built on trust and real knowledge, and I'm glad you're part of it. Your heart is built to last. Give it the right signals, and it will reward you for decades to come. Walk well, walk intentionally, and take care of the most important muscle in your body one step at a time.